To the House Appropriations Committee meeting. At this time, we'll do the roll call, please. Okay, thank you. Clerk, please close the roll. I think we have a few items on our agenda. We have 2 bills to receive reports on, and then we will hear from Secretary of Finance. Andrea?
Yes, sir. One bill, yours, sir, House Bill 176. This is with regard to the state-facilitated IRA savings program. The bill clarifies certain eligibility requirements for Retire Path, the program that's administered by Commonwealth Savers Plan. The bill has no cost to the state as it affects the private sector, and any administrative costs to Commonwealth Savers Plan can be absorbed within their current resources. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Because this bill did not go to subcommittee, came straight to full, members, do you have any questions in regards to HB 176? Okay, if not, then we're going to allow for the public to speak. Generally, we do not receive public comments in full committee, but because I repeat that again, because we did not have this bill to go to sub, we do have someone to speak. So please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I will be very quick. My name is Peter Thompson. I am the Retirement Program Director for Retire Path. We are joined by and supported by AARP and Freedom Virginia. I want to personally thank you for your support and happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Move to report. Motion, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Move to report.
It's been moved and seconded that we report HB 176. Members, please cast your vote. Okay, clerk, please close the roll. That bill reports 22-0. Okay, Tony, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The next bill is House Bill 414. This is Delegate Guzman's bill. This is identical to a bill that you passed in the 2022 session. It removes the requirement to be registered with the Selective Service in order to qualify for any of the financial aid. This is identical to what the federal government has done. They removed that requirement for all of the federal programs. This just comports that with what the federal regulations are.
Mr. Chair, I move to report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we report HB 414. Members, please cast your vote. Clerk, please close the roll. That bill reports 22-0. Thank you, staff, very much. At this time, it's our pleasure to receive the Secretary of Finance, the Honorable Mark D. Sickles.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you're not laughing. That's all I can say. And, Mr. Chairman, you notice I was here on time.
Mr. Secretary, I tell you, we're going to have a great session because you showed up on time waiting on us.
I changed my life around because of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
He
sir.
made me be on time. I was 5 minutes late to everything. But anyway. So I think I'd like to introduce you to Kristen Collins. She is the governor's tax commissioner, and she's just been appointed. Can you stand up? Now, Kristen is in House Finance all the time, so all the Finance Committee members know her well, but just wanted you to introduce her to you guys. So this is a short briefing, which I know you'll appreciate, Mr. Chair, of where we are, as a revenue and economic conditions that we have in the economy right now. So before touching on the revenues, I'm going to do a brief update on the economic conditions with a particular focus on our labor market conditions. The national labor market continues to cool. December jobs numbers showed growth of 50,000 on the whole country, which puts the year-over-year growth at 0.4%, 0.4%. For comparison, 1 year ago, that rate was 1.3%. Virginia has similarly cooled. We had 8,600 new jobs in November, which is quite healthy. However, our growth rate over the year is now at 0.2%, relative to 1.7% at this point last year, so a lot slower than last year. October put a pretty big damper on growth with a net loss of 20,000 jobs in the Commonwealth. We'll talk about why that happened in a minute. Over half of those losses were concentrated in federal government employment. Tax analyzed the data, and it appears that this is the result of the deferred resignation program initiated 1 year ago in January, and it was implemented at September 30th. Inflation numbers came in with a positive beat recently. The consumer price index was up 2.7% year over year in December. It had been running as high as 3% during the year, but the recent drop is obviously welcome. Looking at revenues, December was an excellent month. Since the start of the fiscal year, in other words, the last 6 months, collections have grown by $1.2 billion, or 8.6%. That number has been reported in the newspapers, and that puts us about $395 million, or 2.6%, ahead of the forecast that came out of the GACR process. Most of this variance was due to two factors. One is the non-withholding was very strong, which is a number, as you know, that's hard to predict every year, and we're always careful not to overdo it. And the other part was a lot fewer refunds than expected. Let's dive into the big picture macroeconomic data points. This chart tracks job growth in the U.S. on a monthly basis. Each blue bar is the total jobs added or lost in thousands per month. The green line is year over year. So U.S. job growth has been spotty since the summer. In December, total non-farm employment went up by just 50,000 jobs. You can see that at the very end there, the last little blue line. You can see what happened in October there. That puts the current year-over-year growth at 0.4%. But the trend line you can see there has been down. Employment growth has been down in Virginia for reasons that we all know about and read in the newspaper. The Virginia labor market overview. Before we look at Virginia's employment changes, I think it's worth it to give a brief overview of the Virginia labor market. What are the sectoral shares like? What are the wages like? This chart of super sector employment can help give that overview. Total non-farm employment in the Commonwealth, adding up all the blue bars together here, is 4.2 million, it's a little over that. Professional and business services is our largest sector, over 800,000 people employed in that category. Trade, transportation, and utilities is our second largest sector at 683,000 jobs. The federal government employment is obviously something we're all paying attention to. That accounts for about 173,000 jobs. We're using the BLS statistics for numbers for consistency here. It's worth noting that these employment measures were collected using place of employment. So you'd have to work in Virginia, in the confines of Virginia, to be on this chart. It's not where the worker works. So as many of us from Northern Virginia know, a lot of our constituents don't work in Virginia. Our border with D.C. and Maryland can create these commuting distortions when it comes to federal jobs. Virginia taxes estimated that roughly 50% more federal workers in Virginia, there are more than 50%, based on residency rather than place of work. So, in other words, you can multiply the 173,000 number by 1.5 to get a good idea of what the true impact is. In wages, our largest sector, professional and business services, pays an average of $116,000 a year. The highest paying sector is information with a average annual wage of $148,000. but that's a pretty small sector at only 69,000 jobs. Our second highest paid sector is the federal government at 128,000 each. So that's important when you look at, when you dive down into what our revenues are looking like. Employment growth is positive year over year, but negative in the past 6 months. The total monthly gains and losses are tracked in the blue bars, and the year-over-year growth is tracked by the green line again. So you can see the trend. In November, the most recent month with available data, Virginia's total non-agricultural employment increased by 8,600 after October's major loss of approximately 20,000 jobs. Over on the right-hand chart, you can look sector by sector gains and losses since the start of 26, last July 1. The top red bar is the net loss since the start of fiscal year. Virginia has declined by about 3,000 jobs. In the blue, you can see there's been solid growth in education and health services as well as local government. But in red, you'll note significant losses in leisure and hospitality, manufacturing, and most of all, the federal government. Federal government jobs have declined by 12,600 since June. Okay, this is the famous fork in the road that you see in October there. This decision was put before federal workers last January 28th, I believe, and they had a choice to whether to keep getting paid through September 30th. And you can see we didn't know how many people took it, but you can see now it was a lot. So that's all the people who took the furlough, not the furlough, the delayed unemployment, and that's when it showed up in our statistics. These two charts of U.S. employment ticking down, Virginia stays stable. The U.S. unemployment rate was 4.4% in December, a decrease from November's reading of 4.5%. So that's slightly good news. Virginia's unemployment rate remained flat at 3.5% in November compared to September. October wasn't collected. The U.S. labor force participation rate was 62.4% in December, down a little bit from 62.5% in November. The Virginia labor force participation rate, as you can see in the blue bar, measured 64.3% in November, down from 64.6% in September. So another slight decline of 0.3%. That trend line is not really good, for where we're headed in the future. You can see that we've been on a slight downturn on the labor participation rate, as well as the other statistics you've already seen. So this chart tracks the actual withholding payments submitted by the federal government on behalf of their employees. It's a pretty good way to look at what has happened recently. The BLS data, with their difficulties around place of work versus place of residency, these are specific to people who live and pay taxes in Virginia. We can see the disruption that the government shutdown caused in October and November, where it widened out. Withholding payments were down 21.5 million in October, and then in November, 48.8 million in November. In December, we started to see back pay come in because federal agencies have some idiosyncrasies. Their payment timings, the shutdown disruption, and all will smooth this out eventually. But you can see the big jolts in the economy over the last year. The next slide is something that was unveiled today at Center Finance for the first time. This slide has not been done before. What we have here is a thermometer chart. The dark blue line represents the revenues collected so far relative to their full fiscal year forecast. So at the top line, you'll see withholding. It is $9,107,000,000 out of the $18,450 that we project for the whole year. The only blue line that's short, that we like being short, it will help you, is the refunds. The refunds are way below than predicted. You can see the red diamond is where we were at this time last year, the red dot. The blue line is what we predicted for this year. And so we predicted refunds would be a lot higher than they've been so far. At the bottom, when you look at general funds overall, we totaled $15.48 billion against a full year forecast of $32.18. So we're about halfway there. The government collects revenues, and not in a month by month fashion. There's times in the year where the money comes in a lot greater. So we are a little bit ahead of where we predicted we'd be at this point in the year, which is the blue dot. You can see we're beyond that just a little bit. So it's interesting that, not interesting, but people talk about how much Virginia spends. This is the general fund dollar, which are our precious dollars that we raise here and spend here. We spend a lot more than this with the non-general funds, with your gas taxes, tuition payments, many other things that are paid for by dedicated revenue. So this is just your general fund expenditure for the year. The final chart, this table covers December's performance relative to last year's December on the left. On the right is how fiscal year to date is performing relative to forecast assumptions. Highlighted down in the bottom right, you can see that through the first 6 months of the fiscal year, revenues are exceeding the forecast by $395 million or 2.6%. That's also been well reported in the newspaper. A lot of this overperformance happened in the month that just closed. December revenues, as I mentioned earlier, were very strong. They grew over at $640 billion. That's 21% higher than last December's collections. The non-withholding and refunds accounted for the majority of the vote. I mentioned that earlier. That's why we're doing a little bit better than we thought. And the stock market is doing really well, so there's profit taking going on, and they expect this to continue, although always we have to be careful on the non-withholding assumptions. But because of the stock market being so good, they'll probably be profit taking in the spring, and they're expecting some good results in the spring too. So refunds, I've said that. So the standard, and if you go to the top line that doesn't have a blue bar around it, you can see the forecast variance, the actual withholding that we spent, which is the most stable, the easier thing to predict of our collections, our revenue sources. We collected $9.1 billion. We had projected to collect $9.3 billion, and so there's a slight variance there, but it's not that much to worry about. The number can vary at plus or minus 80 million really easily. So that really is the bottom line, Mr. Chairman, that we have at mid-year, we have $395 million more than we thought we'd have, and that's 2.6% greater than we thought we'd have. I think that is the sum total. Oh, no, there's one more thing. We always have this chart. What can happen the rest of the years and still meet the forecast? Because of our relatively good first half of the year, revenues can decline by 1.6 million and still meet the forecast that we base the budget on. Mr. Chairman, I think that unless you have any questions, that is the long and the short of it. I could sum that up again, but I think I've said it a couple times already.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Committee members, do we have any questions for the Secretary? Delegate McQuinn.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Secretary, I like that, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Secretary, this year, time last year was when all the federal employees were, I guess, I don't know if it were furloughed or fired or.
They were given a choice.
Yes, okay. So based on those that left, do we have any stats on how many now are employed and may have, I mean, in terms of their financial gain or the pay? Is it comparable with what they were making when they left the federal
So
government?
your question is, if a federal employee was laid off and is now reemployed,
Yes.
what's the difference in their
Yes.
compensation? I don't know that. Maybe we can work on that, looking that up. Does anybody know that? No. All the smart people say we don't know that.
Okay. All right.
But it's a good question.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I believe that concludes our agenda for today. Members of the committee, I request that each of you meet me in the library upon adjournment. This concludes our business. Mr. Secretary, thank you very much.
Thank you for the
And
opportunity.
we are adjourned.